Greetings everybody, it's Emily from Pages and Ink, and today I will be doing my book talk on Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge, and I am not showing the cover because it is on my Nook, and I have also already turned off my Nook because I have previously recorded this video and then accidentally hit cancel. So I'm doing it again. This time, though, I have my notes on my lap, just in case I get lost. Try to control the rambling a little for my book talks. But if you don't know what Cruel Beauty is about, it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which is one of my favorite fairy tales, by the way, about a girl named Nyx who kind of from birth was destined to marry and then potentially kill this king of demons that everybody calls the Gentle Lord, which I didn't completely understand why he was called the Gentle Lord, but I digress. So, Nyx is meant to marry and potentially kill the Gentle Lord, and when she does, goes to live in his house, she kind of starts to realize that not everything is as it seems in her world as she knows it. The Demon Lord, the reason why she's meant to kill him is, for one, she's supposed to avenge her mother, and I will get to that in a second. And two, she's supposed to attempt to free her country, I believe. It's either her city or her country. From this parchment sky dome prison that they have all been kept. They have been they've essentially been made into an island. They cannot go anywhere. They cannot see anybody. It's just this dome, from what I understand, and the sky isn't blue like we have, it's like parchment paper. So she's essentially supposed to kill the Demon Lord, and hopefully it will free everybody so they can go back to not reality, but to the rest of the world as we know it, kind of, and not the parchment sky dome that they have been living in for, I think, 9,000 years? I want to say, but it might have been 900. Just because I can't remember. Anyway, so the Demon Lord, who goes by the Gentle Lord outside, oh, I meant to tell you about avenging her mother. So, the reason why Nyx is meant to marry and then potentially kill the Demon Lord is because as a baby, not as a baby, before she was born actually, her father went to the Demon Lord to ask him a favor and requested that he have children. He gave his wife the ability to bear children, and he does, and he says, you will have 2 healthy twin girls on one condition: one of them has to marry me, and if you don't, if you hide them from me, I will track them down and marry one and kill the other. But the reason why she has to avenge her mother is her mother has 2 healthy twin girls but dies of childbirth. So they all blame the Demon Lord for her having children, but nobody thinks about the fact that, he was asking a woman who obviously wasn't meant to have children if she cannot bear them. And I say that because it's obvious her body cannot handle it if she hasn't been able to do it herself, and they actually had to go to a magical entity and be like, give me children. So he should have asked that she survive, which he didn't, and nobody blames him apparently. But so Nyx goes and marries him, and she goes to live with him, and she realizes that not everything is as it seems, and she kind of starts to fall before said Demon Lord that she's supposed to kill, destroy. And starts to kind of second guess her mission. Now, Nyx has known about this mission since she was 10, so there is something that bothers me about this book that I will probably get into a little bit later, that involves her and her sister Astraea, or Astraea, S-T-R-A-I-A. Yeah. But I'm going to start off with the things that I like, because I try to keep these as spoiler-free as possible, so I'm not going to go through and comment on all of the things, because if I comment on all of the things, it may spoil it for other people, and nobody enjoys that. Nobody goes to watch a video and goes, I want to read this, let's see what this person thinks about, and like right off the bat they spoil the entire book. It's like, can you believe at the end everybody dies? Which, by the way, is how my cousin ruined a movie for me. I digress. So, the things I liked. The chemistry between Nyx and the Demon Lord Ignifax is actually pretty good. There are moments where it just seems a little too easy, but I do know that more time has passed between the characters than has originally been let on. Or not originally been let on. That one would think when reading, basically. Granted, it's not months or years, it's probably more like a couple of weeks, but she's still having the time to get to know Ignifax and not just like, I'm gonna say the Shadowhunter effect, where she meets Jace, Clary meets Jace, and just like, I love him, I could never be parted with him. Pretty much right off the bat. So, it's not the case here. Although it's similar to Nyx and Ignifax's shadow, Shade, who at night becomes an actual person, because during the day he's a shadow and at night he's a person. It's important. But Shade and Nyx kind of hit it off, but it's more because he shows her love that she hasn't seen from anybody, really. And I think that's what draws her to him at first, and then she kind of later on, and this is kind of a spoiler, but it prevents anybody from going, ooh, there's a love triangle, because if you can call it a triangle, it's probably about yay big. Like, can you see that triangle in there? Yeah, about that big. Because there is, 3 characters, 1 female love interest, 2 male love interests, but it doesn't get very far for one side. And it's not even very much like infatuation, like not from the get-go, but when Nyx and Ignifax talk about Shade, it's kind of obvious that there's something shady there, because he says that he's constantly trying to steal his wives, which, based on how he interacts with Nyx, I kind of don't think he's lying, and he wasn't. There's a reason for it, but I still kind of felt like after Ignifax said it, I'm like, he's got some deeper plan going on, and if he's using Nyx, I don't like it. And he kind of was. He was very much like, you're my hero, it's going to be over because of you. And it's like, she's been told that by her family for so long that getting told that by a complete stranger puts a lot of pressure on her. And it's almost to the point where it's almost like, not worship, I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't really like Shade's character, which is weird, because normally I go for the sweet and sensitive guy, but in this case, I lean more toward Ignifax, and I think it's because the relationship between Nyx and Ignifax is one of hate-love. I say that, and by hate-love I mean they hate each other, and by hate each other I mean Nyx hates him with a fiery burning passion. I talk too much with my hands. Anyway, Nyx and Ignifax. Nyx hates Ignifax. Ignifax he finds her amusing, for the most part. But then she learns to love Ignifax for his flaws, and even though she knows the things that he's done, she kind of learns that they're not his fault, which is a little bit of a spoiler, but I won't tell you why, so aha. Ways around it. So I like that kind of relationship, and I think the reason why, and when I was analyzing this beforehand, before I hit cancel and had to start all over again, I realized that the reason that I like those types of romances is because there's something very pure about learning to love somebody for their flaws. Because nobody really loves somebody because they're perfect. They can be perfect for them, because maybe their flaws are kind of... Say one person's messy and the other person's clean. Yeah, they get annoyed that that messy person is constantly making things a mess and they have to clean it. But at the same time, it's, if they were both clean, then, that's actually a really bad analogy. right off the top of my head, I can't really think of another one, so I'm gonna try to roll with this a little further. You know, having that messy person, maybe that clean person kind of watches out for them a little more. Maybe that messy person kind of teaches them to kind of relax a little bit, because sometimes people are a little, not high-strung, because that's an insult. I'm gonna stop. If I continue, I'm gonna hurt somebody. Like, their feelings, or their brains, with how stupid. I need to put my hands down. Moving on. Yeah. To say this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling is actually putting it very lightly, because there are actually very few similarities between this book and the Beauty and the Beast story. There is the Beast, there is a character that is a prisoner in the Beast's castle and learns to love him for his flaws. And there's magic, so like a spell, kind of. That's about it. I think the closest thing that really comes to like a Cogsworth and a Lumiere, you know, the household servants, is shade, and again, there's something shady there. You know, there's no sorceress that is trying to teach him a lesson. Sorry, I had to toss something that was bothering me. Yeah. So I found more similarities between the book, which is a 1001 Nights retelling, mind you, the book, The Wrath and the Dawn, and the story of Beauty and the Beast, than Cruel Beauty and Beauty and the Beast, which is nuts, because it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's my favorite. I'm going to draw things, and there's nothing to really draw there. I do, however, like the differences. I love the magic house, and like all the different doors. At some points, I got kind of an Alice in Wonderland vibe, which was a little weird to get from a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But it was still actually pretty cool. You know, there's this magic house that's probably, from the outside, it looks like a complete mess. Like nobody could possibly be living there. But inside, there's doors to planes, and I don't mean planes, I mean planes. Yeah. So doors to different, like, planes, so, like, different worlds. There's doors to, an illusionary place that looks like a meadow, but it's not, and it's actually the heart of Earth, which I can't really explain at the moment. Things that lead to gardens. There's, like, a whole room with just bird cages, but no birds, and yet you can hear birds. Studies, libraries. There's this weird room with a massive globe and, like, a box, and weird sayings written everywhere. So it was kind of cool, and like all the different keys that Ignifax has to carry around in order to be able to open all of those doors. You know, the house and the chemistry between Nyx and Ignifax is awesome. The different hearts. So the Heart of Water was basically a pool of water that you could walk on, and there's like the closest things that they know to stars, which are basically these floating lights. Then there's the Heart of Earth, which is a meadow that's like an illusionary room, but it feels so real, like she could feel the sunlight. Mind you, in her sky, there's no sun, there's like this warm glow, pretty much. There's no like sun that we know of, which kind of seems nice, because you don't get like the really hot days, but at the same time you also don't really get winter. Well, I guess you could, but at the same time, they're not with the rest of the world. I don't know. Anyway. And then there's the Heart of Air, which is literally in the sky, and it's like attached to what everybody calls the Demon's Eye, which was kind of a cool thing, and it's got like a bunch of different statues and a fountain, and it's pretty cool. What I didn't like, besides the almost love triangle and shade, was that a lot of the emotions were kind of, I almost want to say melodramatic. And I say that because like her relationship between her and Shade is just kind of too easy, and then like her hatred for her family is a little too easy. I get where she's coming from, though, don't get me wrong, but every set of twins I have ever read about, or know, or have seen on TV, they are tight, because they were raised together. You know, if they're the same if they're identical, you know, they have a lot of inside jokes and they switch places all the time. If they're fraternal, you know, they're pretty much the best of friends in general. I don't think I've ever really known twins that are mortal enemies, like what Estrella and Nyx are. And they're not mortal enemies. Nyx just hates her sister because her sister won't step up and take her place, because she's the favorite one, so she hates her. And I'm like, and here's where I was talking about earlier about how they didn't know about this till they were 10. They were 10. That is 10 years of growing up together and playing together and having fun together and learning together. That's not gonna change up until she's like 16, 17, because you've grown up with them. You know, I feel like you'd still remain close, but apparently after she found out, everything like flipped on a dime. Her sister was always happy smiley, like she didn't care that her sister was being married off to a monster, which made Nyx mad. Her hatred for her father I kind of understand more. That's a little more believable because, like I said earlier, nobody puts the blame on the man for making a wish and then not realizing his mistake or not asking to protect his wife. And at one point, I think Ignifax even points out to her that the life of his wife didn't seem as important to him as the life of his kids, because he could have made that change, which, you know, he probably was just focused on the one thing, because, you know, you always want to be careful with, for example, genies, because a lot of times it's not as easy as I wish for this, because there's always a drawback. And there's definitely a drawback if you're not specific enough for it. And there's also a payment, so even if you have like the most foolproof, there's payment for it. So you could have like the most foolproof wish, but the payment for your wish is something very important that you kind of need. Yeah. There's also a relationship between her father and her aunt, and the whole time she's like, "You're betting my aunt while your wife rots in a grave," or something. And I'm like, honestly, unless that was his goal from the beginning, I think I'd be happy for my parents that they have found another, but I guess because, you know, I don't know, I guess because the situation is so weird, her father had never really shown any pride or any love towards her, that I think it probably hit her in the wrong way, that, you know, he obviously didn't care for his wife, and although, you know, his favorite daughter is the one that looks like his wife, I don't know. I understand where her hatred of him comes from. I think the hatred of her twin is a little much, and her hatred of her aunt is kind of unfair. But I get where she's coming from. And based on my notes, I think that is all I really have to say. My feelings really are mixed, and when I wrote up my review, it was 4 stars, and while I was taping this, I moved it down to 3, because I realized that as much as I enjoyed the story itself, and I know I'm going to want to read it again, it was more for specific elements of the story than the story overall. And I feel like if the overall story makes me want to read it again, that's when it deserves 4 or 5 stars. But when it's more like, meh, I'd read it to see Nyx, or I'd read it to see Ignifax, or I'd read it just to explore that house, that's not a 4-star book, so I moved it down to 3. But I have one more video for you guys after this, and that is my favorite Fridays video. Sorry, I do have a tendency to ramble. I'm sure you're used to that by now if you've been watching my videos for some time, and I thank you for putting up with me. I love you all so much. It always means so much to me when you guys watch my videos. I wish you guys a very wonderful weekend. I will see you in just a little bit if you watch my next video, or in a while if you're gonna put it off for a while. But I will see you soon. I love you guys. Mwah. Happy reading.